In this video, we will guide you on how to help learners interpret data with specific reference to the use and drawing of graphs. In order to be able to teach graphs, we must first clarify the purpose of graphs and charts. Graphs are used to show information visually. For example, on this graph, we can see how many people in South Africa speak each of the national languages. It shows that most people speak isiZulu and the least number of people speak Hindebele. Graphs can be used to show the results of investigations or experiments, such as the children repeatedly throwing a die to see which numbers show up the most when they were learning about probability. In this case, we can easily see that 4 was the most frequent number showing and 3 the least frequent. Graphs help people put data into categories. For example, here it shows the different types of domestic animals in the neighborhood. A graph also helps us compare data. We can easily see here that there are more dogs than cats in the neighborhood. A fourth reason why graphs are useful is because they help us to display information so that it is easy for people to compare. Such as this graph, which illustrates that most of the children at this school use the bus for transport and very few use bicycles. Graphs can be used to summarize information, in this case the learner results on their maths tests. This graph illustrates that learner 3 is scoring the highest marks and learner 4 the lowest, while learner 2's marks have been dropping and needs to be followed up. Tell learners that they would by now have noticed that there are many different types of graphs. We are going to look at some of the most common ones. The first one is a pictograph. A pictograph shows information in a picture form, like this graph using pictures of children to show how many attended class this week. The second type of graph that is often used is a bar graph. Bar graphs are very useful because they allow us to compare data and see how something changes over time. For example, here we can see that most learners attended class on Wednesday and the fewest learners attended class on Monday. A third type of graph is called a pie chart. Tell children it is easy to remember this type of graph because the information is shown as pieces of a pie. A pie chart allows us to quickly see the biggest or smallest share of the total data by simply looking at the graph. Next, we will be discussing histograms. The histogram looks like a bar chart, but unlike a bar chart, there are no spaces between the bars. A histogram is a graphical display of data using bars of different heights. In this example, we can see that most learners did their oral in class on the Wednesday, and the least children did their orals on the Monday. Histograms allow us to compare data easily. They also provide a more concrete form of consistency because the intervals are always equal. In this example, it is 1 day. It is important that learners understand how graphs are constructed. This knowledge is essential for children to be able to correctly read and interpret data on graphs. We will start off with the title. The title is always above the graph and it explains what the graph shows. The title of this graph is Number of Learners in Class This Week. Remind learners that in a bar graph there is a y-axis and a x-axis. Inform them that you are aware that it might have been hard for them to remember which one is which. Teach them the rhyme, x to the left and y to the sky. The y-axis runs vertically, up and down. The y-axis usually has numbers for things being counted. For example, in this example, it shows the number of children in the class. The x-axis runs horizontally or flat. The x-axis usually represents time periods or names of things being compared, in this case, the days of the week. Tell learners that the word legend means story. Each graph has a story, and on most graphs, it is shown as a legend. It is important that we take time to read the legend on a graph because this helps us understand what we are looking at. The legend often appears somewhere next to the graph or below the graph. In this video, we focused on key information children need to know when they begin to work with graphs in maths. We suggested that first children be given a chance to learn the purpose of graphs. Then it was emphasized that children are shown the different types of graphs they need to be able to work with according to the revised teaching plan. And finally, we explain the different parts of a graph that children need to know in order to be able to read information correctly. Before we conclude this video, we must all remember the importance of encouraging our children as they work through these maths concepts. Here are the wonderful words of Dr. Zeus from one of his books which we can share with our learners. You're off to great places. Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting, so get on your way. We have reached the end of our discussion of graphs and charts. At the end of this video, links are provided for you to access further useful online content and worksheets. Remember to complete the graphs quiz, for which a link is also provided at the end of the video, before you move on to the final section of the workshop.